Hello, South Africa, and welcome. My name is Kamogelo Dipoko, your host of the DPSA Batupele podcast. This is the fourth edition of the Batupele podcast and the start of a two-part masterclass series on business process management. The masterclass is facilitated by the Chief Director Operations Management for the DPSA, Marcel Wilson. First up is Natasha Pillay, the Director of Service Delivery Planning, who covers the importance of business process management.
Business process management is defined as the practice of identifying, modeling, analyzing, optimizing, monitoring, and controlling end-to-end business processes. The reason we put this in is because we find that departments normally confuse management with mapping. It's important to understand that business process mapping is only one element of business process management. We require departments to identify your processes, and that's broken down into core processes, support processes, as well as management processes. You then have to model your process, and this is where the mapping comes in. You have to then analyze your processes, and this is where you pick up inefficiencies within your process, as well as opportunities to start digitizing or automating activities within your process. Once you've done your to-be or your improved business process and implemented it, you have to continuously ensure that your business processes are monitored, controlled, and reviewed. It also includes both automated and non-automated business processes in order to meet your department's strategic goals. It's a continuous process that leads to improvement over time. It strategically maximizes your resources to minimize expenditure. It gives you better visibility and control over your business processes. We were mapping processes with DIRCO 2 days ago, and it was almost like a light bulb moment where they were able to see their entire process end-to-end in one diagrammatical view. You're able to pick up exactly where the bottlenecks and fragmentations are. And this is where the operational deficiencies come in. So you're having better business processes in place will also ultimately ensure that your productivity is improved. Having business processes managed also allows you to make better informed decisions, and this would lead in terms of your organizational structure decisions as well as performance decisions. And lastly, it allows you to fine-tune your workflows to increase operational agility.
You are still tuned to the DPSA Batupele podcast aimed at keeping you abreast of the workings of South Africa's public sector whilst providing you with educational content. Let's move straight to Fomani Mahlale, Business Process Analyst at the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, DFFE, where he shares business process management strategies that the DFFE use to propel it into being one of the leading departments in the public sector.
The purpose of today's presentation is to share some strategies that we've used to propel us to this position. We believe that the success is never an accident, but a result of planning, dedication, and a continuous pursuit for improvement. Our top management buy-in was solicited, okay? So we did this in a number of ways. Number one, we showed the alignment of BPM with the organizational goals. We showed management that streamlining processes led to reduced errors and quicker response time, improving overall operational efficiency. This efficiency in turn directly impacts the performance of the department by ensuring timely and accurate service delivery. Number two, we quantified the return on investment by providing estimates of the return on investment that BPM can deliver using metrics like cost saving, revenue growth, and risk reduction. Then we demonstrated success stories by sharing case studies and examples from the successes from within the department and other departments. Then we would have project team meetings at the genesis of a project where we would converse with stakeholders to understand their priorities and their challenges. And we use this to tailor-make BPM solutions that directly address their needs. Then we also created a compelling business case, right? So this would outline the problem. It would come up with a proposed solution, expected benefits and risks, So it would assist in managing expectations between the people who are responsible for the project and top management. Okay, and then another strategy that could be used is to pilot the project at small scale, and through the success of the piloted projects, then it would build confidence and support for bigger initiatives that would want to be pursued, right? Then we would also have a risk mitigation plan where we address concerns by presenting a risk mitigation plan, showing potential risks and how they will be managed and minimized through the BPM process. And then it's also very important to have a communication plan with top management that keeps top management informed at every stage of the project, and we provide regular updates and progress reports. And we also have training and education, offering training sessions or workshops for top management to help them understand BPM concepts, benefits, and their role in the initiatives. Okay. The institutionalization of BPM. So primarily, setting clear objectives is very important. Management should define clear objectives aligned with the organization's strategic goals. And these objectives serve as the foundation of our efforts as BPM. Okay, another thing that's required is proper governance structures. So management should create governance structures that define roles, responsibilities, and decision-making processes for BPM. This ensures accountability and oversight. So within the project, we also require resources. So resources include budget, technology, skilled personnel, and this needs to be allocated by management to support the BPM initiatives effectively. Then we also need policies and standards, right? So management should ensure that there are BPM policies and standards to guide the process design, the documentation, and the improvement efforts consistently across the organization. So management is also responsible for this, to communicate a compelling vision to all the employees, emphasizing how BPM aligns with the organization's long-term goals. The next topic is monitoring progress. So this entails regularly tracking BPM project progress and key performance indicators is essential for management to assess the impact of BPM initiatives, right? And then reviewing and approving BPM projects. The management should review and approve BPM projects, ensuring that they align with strategic objectives and provide value to the organization, right? And then another strategy is recognizing and rewarding success. So it should be acknowledged and rewarded as individuals and teams contribute successfully to BPM. This will foster motivation and enthusiasm. This is the role of management in the implementation of BPM. Okay, so firstly, what's required is defining the BPM objectives and scope. So management should clearly articulate the goals and boundaries of the BPM implementation, and this will provide a roadmap for the project, right? So the main driving force will be the BPM strategy, and management should make sure that there's a comprehensive BPM strategy that outlines the approach, the methods, and the timelines for the BPM implementation. Then there should be clear roles and responsibilities for all the team members involved in BPM, process owners, and the stakeholders. Okay, so management also needs to ensure compliance that are required for the successful implementation of BPM. Right, so, and then management is also responsible for monitoring progress by regularly checking on the BPM project against the set milestones and the KPIs, and then also providing feedback and evaluation, right? Getting feedback and consistent updates from the BPM team to assess the effectiveness of the project and to make necessary adjustments. And then the last one, to evaluate the tools and the technology. Assess and select appropriate BPM tools and technology that align with the organization's needs and goals. Obviously, this constantly evolves as time goes, okay? Next slide. The role of management in monitoring and reporting of BPM. So the first topic is establishing KPIs, right? So management should define relevant KPIs that align to the BPM objectives in order to realistically measure the success and effectiveness of the process improvements, right? Identifying deviations and bottlenecks. This entails actively identifying deviations from expected process performance and bottlenecks in the workflows, and to take corrective action as and when required. Then the next topic is risk assessment and mitigation. So to assess and report on the potential risks and issues that may impact the BPM initiatives, and to develop an appropriate mitigation plan to address this. Right? And then reviewing compliance and standards to ensure that the process adheres to the compliances required also by the DPSA Regulation 36 and the OMF structure. And then reporting on any deviations and to employ corrective measures as and when required. Right. And then stakeholder communication is also required to keep stakeholders informed through regular updates and reports, providing insights into BPM progress and outcomes. Then the next one is resource allocation adjustment. So management should be prepared to reallocate resources based on the monitoring of results to ensure that the BPM objectives stay on track and within budget. Right, and benchmarking and best practices, which is also what we are doing now, to compare process performance with industry benchmarks and best practices to identify areas for further improvement. Right, and this also requires an improvement feedback loop to establish a feedback loop with the teams to gather insights from frontline employees, enabling for an ongoing refinement of the process, right? Okay, moving on to the key lessons that we learned as a team. We learned that we need clear leadership and accountability. We have learned that effective BPM in government requires clear leadership roles and accountability structures. And then the next one is to simplify and standardize processes. Okay, simplify and standardize government processes to improve efficiency and to reduce complexity, making them more friendly and usable to everyone. Okay. Then we also prioritize data security and privacy. We've learned that the government, as a government, we need to prioritize data security and privacy compliance to protect sensitive information that we get in our mapping workshops and to optimize processes at all times. Then the next one is transparency and accountability. We've learned that transparency in our initiatives is crucial for building trust with our process owners, right? Having clear communication strategies, progress updates, and accountability. So there's also change management and training involved. We've learned that investing in comprehensive change management and training programs to help employees adapt to new processes and technology is required and would contribute to the effective implementation of these processes, right? And then we've also learned that as technology innovates and progress, we need to leverage technology wisely, and also referring to the modernization project from the DPSA, this also comes into play so that the succession planning and the effective functioning of this project actually affects the output and the overall organizational mission. Right, and then we have measure and report impact. We have learned to establish a matrix and reporting mechanism to measure the impact of our initiatives, providing evidence and value to all our stakeholders and to top management, right? And then we've also learned that it's important to be fluid and be flexible and to evolve as priorities change, and adjusting the way we map as time goes in order to accommodate evolving needs, right? And then we've also seen that promoting a culture of continuous improvement is important. We've learned to foster a culture where government employees are encouraged to identify and propose process improvements, making this an ongoing practice, right? So next slide is the best practices to be shared, right? So number one is clear process documentation, which entails the documenting of government processes comprehensively, including roles, responsibilities, workflows, clear documentation of fundamentals and understanding and improving all processes, right? To have a people-centric design, design processes with end user in mind, focusing on delivering their services in a user-friendly and in an accessible way, right? Then the next one is robust data governance, right? This also speaks to the managing of sensitive information and the privacy, right? So we've worked on establishing strong data governance practices to ensure data accuracy, security, and compliance with privacy regulation throughout the BPM initiatives. And then we've also learned that cross-agency collaboration, like similar to what we're doing now, is very conducive, right, to ensure and encourage the collaboration on and information sharing among different government agencies, and to streamline processes that cross organizational boundaries, because I believe that there's a lot that we could learn from each other, right? Right, and then the next one speaks to technology integration, where we've seen that it's necessary to invest in technology, such as workflow automation, data analytics, digital platforms, and this will assist the team, in being more effective in their work.
Welcome back to the DPSA Batubili podcast and part 1 Masterclass in Business Process Management. Now to the Director of the Red Tape Reduction, Michelle Ellis, providing details of their approach when implementing effective business process management.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Ellis. I am representing the Red Tape Reduction Unit within the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, department within the Western Cape government. So we're going to touch very briefly on our approach as the Red Tape Reduction Unit in terms of implementing business process management. So I will be joined by my colleagues, Bandile and Aisha. Bandile is responsible specifically for business process improvements within the Red Tape Reduction Unit, and Aisha is responsible for driving culture transformation as part of our unit's work, and the two of them will briefly touch on how the two links. Our presentation we'll briefly look at who are we as a unit, our approach, including business process improvements, and then based on the brief that was given to us, we'll try to touch on all the points as you requested. We'll also briefly present on a case study on the implementation of business process management within a local municipality. Our unit's approach is the obvious regulatory reform, where we provide comments on legislation as well as advocate both from a national, provincial and local government perspective to look at improving regulations. We also have what is called a business support helpline service. So as we present, you'll notice that our business process management approach is not necessarily improving processes within our department, but it's looking at all those business-facing government processes that businesses have to comply with in order to make it easier to do business. And then for the last 2 years only, we've started looking at culture transformation. So today's presentation will specifically look at how we've implemented lean management as a tool to improve processes. We'll take you through our journey and some lessons learned, and then Bandile will touch on the implementation of business process management within the Stellenbosch municipality, as one of our key roles is to also assist our municipalities with red tape reduction initiatives. And with that, I'll now hand over to Aisha. I hope she is able to put on a mic.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Aisha Augustus, as Michelle has mentioned, and I'm a Deputy Director in the Department of Economic Development, responsible for case management, culture, and the advocacy of lean management for the Western Cape government. Next slide. So maybe just some context around how we started with the lean management journey. We found ourselves in a very tight fiscal environment, as many of us are aware. As government departments, our resources are less, but we have to deliver more. We knew that reducing waste as a capability and a competency amongst Western Cape government officials hasn't been addressed. So how are we providing capabilities to Western Cape government officials in order to be equipped with the right tools to reduce waste within process improvements? Thirdly, officials were also not aware how to do process improvements. And I think lastly, we needed to create much more value for businesses and citizens. And looking at this context, we then decided to lean in and thus improve our processes with a lean management approach. So the next slide is about lean management. So what is lean management? It's a customer-centered management system that focuses on creating value for the customer, and in this instance, the citizen, but also businesses, by optimizing resources through the elimination of waste. Next slide, we'll be talking about, so how did we solicit top management buy-in? Well, for starters, the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, our top management has always been very supportive of the idea that we needed to build capability, reduce waste, and improve our processes. The challenge that we found ourselves as the red tape reduction unit is that there wasn't enough advocacy. So we actually went on a mission for about 2 years to really advocate for lean management as a capability to reduce waste and improve our processes within the Western Cape government. And because of this excitement, we had many other officials come on board. We engaged the DG's office. We used the system that we are very familiar with. We sent out a circular asking Western Cape government departments to nominate officials to attend lean management training. To make it more exciting also, we curated really well-designed information on lean management. We tried to create a really good user experience for officials because not many officials understood what it was. And we needed to relay that information to them as clearly as possible in order to get their buy-in. We also worked with our partners in departments. So we worked with senior managers where we knew their officials and their teams would really benefit from lean management training, but also the processes where we thought that, or we had an idea where citizens would actually benefit or there would be the most value. And I think lastly, something that we also did is we gathered as much insights. We had focus group discussions with past participants, and we also consulted lean management practitioners abroad to actually understand and really put forward our advocacy with real data and insights around people who experience lean management within the public sector and how they applied it. So just around the role of management for the institutionalization of lean management practice. So if we're looking at the graph, maybe just to check, Michelle, does the graph show on your side?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. So as we can see from this graph, you've got lean management processes, you've got people management systems, and you've got business management systems. And the way that lean fits into all of this at the very center is the people development system. The real good thing about lean management as a tool is that it's a management practice that managers and top managements can then use to support their staff in people development. And underpinned by this are your technical requirements, your cross-functional training needs. So how are the training needs for process improvements, such as lean management and others, fitting into your entire management system? And that's something that we feel is a really good model of how lean management practice fits in terms of the institution. Maybe just something to note on this in terms of a model that we found in the Western Cape that worked really well. So we had a director within the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning who had been exposed to lean management as a tool. when this director then really understood the value of it, who is now an HOD, he then turned around the entire culture of that department to look at waste and process improvements differently. And the reason that I'm sharing that is because in many instances we found if senior managers are not exposed to these tools also in terms of reducing waste, then sometimes the findings kind of fall by and they are not implemented. So that was one of our really good, I think, good practices where we found a senior manager using the tools and creating a culture of waste reduction within their department. Some recommendations to institutionalize lean as a management practice for business processes. This is just in our experience. So what we suggest is to plan and forecast your budget for very good training programs, but training programs that build capability for staff who then walk away feeling much more empowered around how to do process improvements and really taking ownership of that. Find processes that can have the most impact for the citizen and your staff. So as staff are going through the process, which processes will bring out the most value in terms of morale, but also the most value for the citizen. Get your HOD buy-in and use the change management principles for process improvement. We've seen it time and time again how often we do process improvements, but because those change management principles haven't been utilized very effectively, our findings and our solutions and our improvements are also not implemented, and it just becomes fruitless and wasteless expenditure. And I think lastly, have a mindset of continuous improvement and encourage your culture to have the same. The role of monitoring and reporting for business processes. So the role of monitoring and reporting, we would say develop an M&E dashboard. So how do you track the lead time after each process improvement? Use surveys with citizens to ask them about the experiences after the improvement, because once again, it's about what value are we creating for the citizen as a result of these process improvements. Use APP targets as indicators, keeping ourselves accountable and measurable. So for example, which percentage of your applications are processed in 30 days? We suggest that you monitor results, keep improving until your citizen is happy with the value being provided. Build in-house capability, equip staff with skills to do process improvements, and that they can then actually take ownership of that processes that they work with every day. And I think lastly, there's no single formula for process improvement. It's a continuous journey to constantly create value for the citizen. And I think a rule of thumb that many of us are very familiar with is that value is created over time with continuous improvement. Just some key lessons that we found along our lean management journey. There are also many benefits to it along with the lessons. So some of the benefits of lean management training, which we found are not only to reduce waste, but there are all these other value adding I think things that come along with it. So you've got increased client and citizen satisfaction, because lean management as a process improvement methodology is all about value for the customer. So everything we do around that process and leaning it out is all about creating that value for the customer. So just some facts around our current approach with Heritage Western Cape. We approached the CEO and his entire management team, who is now attending a 2-day introduction to lean. So here they're really talking about what are the concepts of waste and how do we actually look at the steps that we can take to make a complete paradigm shift of how to reduce waste and create value for the citizen. They will also be attending a 4-month accredited training program on lean management as a skill and a capability. This is the first time we're doing this as the department and the Western Cape government. So after the training of the 4 months, they will have a complete life process, which they've improved as a team. The process which they selected is the Heritage Permit application process. With Heritage Western Cape, we've also used our change management principles really effectively. And as a result, we started to see how the incubator approach of taking the full management team will yield more successful results in terms of implementation. Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of yet another insightful episode of DPSA Batupili podcast. Stay tuned for part 2 coming soon. If you found this episode educational, do share it and remember to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify at DPSA Batupili. Until then, this is Kamudi Poko signing off. #Batupili.